Martha McCallum. Welcome to the post-game coverage of the first presidential debate. Here with us in New York, Harold Ford Jr., Dana Perino, Jesse Waters, Kellyanne Conway, and Brit Hume. Sean Hannity also with us.
In the spin room in Atlanta. Listen, this was a 90-minute debate between the current president, the former president, the two prospective nominees of their parties. And really, the news came in the first few moments. President Biden spoke his first words in a very raspy voice, at times stumbling through early answers. 10 minutes in, he stopped flat on an answer, stopped short. The White House is now telling reporters that the president has a cold and has had a cold. On substance, former President Trump continued to hammer the issue of border security and illegal immigrants coming across the border again and again and again. President Biden did make points on abortion, defending NATO, but much of the debate went back and forth on how bad each president was, arguing about that, even going down to golf handicaps at one point. The moderators asked substantive questions. The candidates answered what they wanted. But the big thing was how they looked and how everyone reacted to this moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get past the obvious, which was this very weak voice from President Biden. At times he had looks of confusion. He was looking down, times where he looked vacant while President Trump was speaking. And as you mentioned, Brett, there was sort of a bit of a freeze around 12 minutes into this. I mean, this is a problem. This is an issue that either they're going to try to talk their way out of about the cold thing, or they're going to ask the question of whether or not the bar of a strong performance was met, because that is what was talked about, on other networks where you have prominent Democrats, Axelrod and Van Jones were saying, look, he needs to go out there. He's got to prove that he's capable of doing the job. And then he has to really stick it to President Trump and really nail that. And they were saying, if he doesn't do that, then he doesn't deserve to be up there. This is the elephant in the room, the donkey in the room, whatever you want to call it tonight. But this is the issue that everybody is going to be talking about. We're going to play a clip of this in a little bit. But he, just one example. He said he went to Normandy and he spoke to World War II veterans who died and visited the World War I cemetery. That's not an exact verbatim, but that both of those elements were in there. And I just want to make one other point, which is that Trump didn't really indulge in this. He didn't react a whole lot. He did, a little bit of a smirk face at times, but basically he stayed focused and looked straight ahead. He landed points on Afghanistan, said he fired generals who needed to be fired, and that Biden had never done that. So obviously a lot to talk about.
Yeah. January 6th and other issues as well. Overall, the moderators asking questions all over the board. We'll bring in our panel. Britt, first to you, your thoughts on this night, what it means, what you took away from it.
All the discussion of issues that was held, all the details of the debate, none of that mattered. One thing that mattered more than anything else, and that was Joe Biden's demeanor. And from the moment he opened his mouth in answering the first question he got, I think America looked and said, this man should not be reelected, simply because they were looking to see if he could display strength and command, and he displayed none of that. He sounded weak, possibly because of his cold. He seemed unfocused at times. He stumbled. He said preposterous things, just like the one Martha just mentioned about saying he'd, visited and talked to the soldiers who died. In my view, Trump didn't change very many people's view of him. Biden, I think, did, and not for the better.
Let's go to Sean Hannity in the spin room in Atlanta. Sean, what's your reaction?
Guys, in the history of modern televised presidential debates, I don't think America has ever seen anything like this. I wrote down some adjectives, and I'm gonna just read a few of them off to you. It was the biggest train wreck of any presidential candidate ever. Britt is right. From the minute he spoke at the opening of the debate, he sounded awful. He started with speedy talk. He looked terrible. Maybe the worst part of all of this is when he wasn't even speaking, he was staring out like an empty vessel, or vacant, to use Martha's words. He was incoherent. This is after a full week of prep, mumbling, bumbling, stumbling, dazed, confused, struggling. He had a brain fart twice during the debate. It was a disaster. Now, I'm looking, for example, at the Drudge Report, and the Drudge Report is saying Operation Replace Joe Biden. That's not good. The Border Patrol Union has come out and said, to be clear, we have never and will never endorse Joe Biden. Politico has a piece out right now saying Biden is toast, calling it now. Biden stumbles and rambles in the opening debate. Operation replace him in 130 days. The Democrats that I know that were texting me are in a state of complete, they are stunned at how bad this went for him. But, I wish it weren't so. It was almost like I was waiting at times for somebody to just throw in the towel. It was a no mas moment. It's over. It's done. He is too weak. He is too frail. He is a cognitive mess. He is not strong enough for what is the most difficult, toughest, hardest job on the face of the earth, to be the president of our country. This is serious. It is significant. And I don't know how this plays out from here. To Donald Trump's credit, on the other end, he was dialed in. He did not take the bait. He took all the slings and arrows, the rehearsed lines of Joe Biden. He let it roll off him like water off a duck's back. And he stayed on message and was extraordinarily effective on pretty much every issue of substance they talked about.
Sean, there's going to be a lot of spinning in that spin room on all sides. We'll come back to you in a sec. Harold Ford Jr., your thoughts?
I don't disagree largely with what Britt and Sean have said about President Biden's performance. I thought it was not a great look or a great night for America. If you're outside of the country, if you hadn't really followed this stuff, this was not the best thing for America. The President Biden seemed confused at times. He seemed unprepared. This week of preparation, he didn't seem to have it. Maybe the cold and other things really contributed mostly to it. There's no doubt that not only will this not quiet those who are thinking about the idea of a different candidate for Democrats, this is only going to increase the organization and the seriousness of an effort.
And do you think that happens now? Do you think that really happens?
I don't know. I got to tell you, the freeze up on the first part, I mean, it seemed like he wanted to say certain things. He had things on his mind, but he couldn't get them out. And the text I got from Democrats and some Republican friends, but largely Democrat friends, echoed everything that was here. Then for them at the last part of it was the amplified what you said at the outset, that this is a very negative thing from both of them. They clearly have personal dislike. They forget the fact that they're being elected president to represent people, to make people's lives better. I didn't hear from either of them a rosy view about what the country would look like over the next 4 years. I heard each of them say each of them were to blame for where we are right now. And then for them to be arguing over whose golf handicap, we all smirked a bit and made light of it, but you had two presidential candidates arguing like they were at a public golf course, arguing over who was a 10 handicap or a 6 handicap, while Americans are actually paying too much for food, too much for gas, worried about their kids. And this is what we dealt with. But specifically for Democrats, there's no doubt. This is not going to quiet anything. In fact, I think this is going to increase it in a more serious and organized way.
The Untold Story continues right after this.
Dana.
Joy Reid on MSNBC said, "My phone never really stopped buzzing. The universal reaction was somewhere approaching panic. I think that the Trump team could probably just take all the Democrats' words and run that." During the debate, the Biden campaign was sending out fundraising appeals saying, "Joe's really crushing him. Give us money." And in the meantime, the Democrats are openly talking about replacing Joe Biden at the convention. Openly talking about it, not like off the record, maybe we should, perhaps we should.
No, it's a full-on meltdown.
They are absolutely having this conversation. And I saw Joe Biden at the State of the Union. I know we all were there. I didn't like the speech. I thought he yelled a lot, but he was like fine. So we all thought, okay, so maybe he'll do fine. That was terrible within the first 10 seconds. 80 minutes into the debate is when they asked a question about age. It didn't matter by then what the answer was because everyone had already watched it for 80 minutes.
As I said before, to their credit, the moderators asked substantive questions. They did it in a way that seemed fair. January 6th, came after immigration and also inflation. But this is a full, if you look online, a full meltdown on the Democratic side about what to do, what comes next. Peter Doocy's at the White House. Peter, any initial reaction? Obviously, the White House is going to say he did fine, but any thoughts of people you've talked to about where this goes?
Well, a lot of the talk ahead of this debate was Donald Trump accusing Joe Biden of taking Adderall to be hopped up. It didn't sound like Adderall. It sounded like he needed Benadryl, because now the initial reaction from Democrats, Jackie Heinrich just sent a group of us on a Fox internal email chain. She talked to a well-connected Democratic source who said the House and the Senate are going to be the Republicans for now. Everyone is freaking out. He, the president, needs to go, but there's no way to replace him unless he agrees. And we got a couple more quotes from Pat Ward, who is our senior editorial producer here at the White House. He says one Democratic source tells Fox, not good, and another Democratic source tells Fox, I am in shock. Two people who work with the campaign in Wilmington told me during the debate when I asked, what's wrong with the president's voice? He has a cold. But at no point in the run-up to this did they say he had a cold. In fact, they were posting videos of him drinking water, like a dark Brandon water, in the elevator at the venue to say that that was his performance enhancer. Nothing about a cold. And we understand that his schedule the next couple days is going to be packed. He's going directly from the debate to North Carolina for some campaign events, and then to New York for some fundraisers. If he is actually sick, you would think that they would take him down because he is having a hard time speaking and is possibly contagious. We have not heard about any scheduled changes yet.
Peter, we're being told that the vice president is going to be out doing media. We'd love to have her on here. She's welcome anytime.
Madam Vice President!
Thank you, Peter. You're
Thanks,
trying
Peter.
to get her there?
I don't think
One way to
I
book
think
a guest.
she's someplace else. Peter, thank you. I want to turn to Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, what is your takeaway here, and what does happen? First of all, it doesn't seem like the September 10th debate is happening.
I think that's close to zero. There's no way that the same people who fed us all a bunch of lies, that in private Joe Biden is some AI-generated cartwheel machine. We all know what he's like in private because we all just saw him in public. And whoever's idea it was to split the screen between Joe Biden and Donald Trump is not serving the president well. Joe Biden asked for this debate. He basically begged for this debate to save his presidency, and he's now harmed it even more. But, Brett, I want to say this to our Democratic friends who are watching. This is enough. It's enough. You're ruining the country. Everybody, our world leaders are seeing what we all see. Let's stop arguing about golf handicaps and a little aside here and there. The serious point is the one that people take away from this, which is this is just a man who can't do the job. What's wrong with that, by the way? Can't we admit that? Everybody has a relative who's in a situation like this. I hope Joe Biden lives another 20 years. I just think it should be spent in Delaware ASAP. You and Peter Doocy just said the two magic words as to why it's not easy to remove Joe Biden and hasn't been easy for the 18 months they should have done it. Kamala Harris. People fear her. The fact that you're even mentioning Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer, how are we not mentioning the black woman vice president? It's because she's shed 28 senior staffers, because nobody has confidence in her competence. They are scared about her being the president. And I think that's a very important point here. But let's stop pretending there's a mercy rule in Little League. If you're way ahead in runs, you call the game early. They should have done that.
Quickly, we're going to take a break.
Let's remember, we got this convention coming up. The majority of delegates are Biden people. They were chosen by his camp, ran to support him. So he would have to withdraw, but not as president, because as Kellyanne suggests, if he withdrew as president, and she stepped aside, she becomes President Harris and could run as an incumbent. Democrats don't want that. So what would have to happen would be for Biden to liberate his delegates, serve out his term, step aside at the end of the term, and let the party then, peopled by Biden delegates, deal with a race that would then ensue among...
At the convention.
At the convention.
They say he will not accept the nomination and let a race ensue.
Exactly right. Yes. Not accept the nomination, say, serve out his term, but not be renominated. And they'd have to talk him into doing it. And look, think how tempting it must have been for him, or should have been for him, to say, I served a term, I defeated Donald Trump, I'm going to go back to Delaware.
Why do you think that didn't happen?
Because of her.
Because that's Joe Biden. Stubborn, proud, and in the end, I think, foolish.
That is the Untold Story podcast for today. I'm Martha McCallum. We'll see you next time. You've been listening to The Untold Story with Martha McCallum. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Make sure to rate and review. For more podcasts, go to foxnewspodcast.com. Listen ad-free with the Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.